Welcome to an early Thanksgiving week edition of the TwinSpires Jury, coming to you a few days before we normally do because Thanksgiving is on Thursday. And we have some major stakes action for closing weekend of Churchill Downs, starting with Friday's Grade 2 Clark and the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere. We're also going to look at the Grade 2 Goldenrod on the road to the Kentucky Oaks because we have two more prep races for points toward the Kentucky Derby and Oaks this weekend. But before we start off, I just wanted to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, Darren and James Scully.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving to both of y'all.
All right, well, let's start on Black Friday. We have the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere race 10 on Friday. It's a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-old fillies, 5:25 p.m. Eastern time. James, I'll start with you. Who is your pick in this race?
Well, I'm going to go with the favorite, number one, Lush Lips. I think that the 3-year-old filly turf division has been strong this year, and I think Lush Lips is among the elites in the division. This race, she is coming off a really nice win in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup at Keeneland. I thought that her run style benefited her that day. She sat close to moderate tempo, took over, and comfortably held off a late running Fionn. And that's Fion's only setback in her last 5 starts. So she was definitely flattered by the competition. But the thing I like about Lush Lips is that earlier in her career, she was like more of a confirmed front running type. She was on go from the start of her races. Earlier this year in the spring, once she got a troubled trip in the Edgewood where she didn't break right, really rallied well to be second that day. She's shown more versatility. Her next race, she rallied from 5th to win the 1 mile Tepin at Churchill Downs, showing an affinity as well for the turf course that day. And in the Del Mar Oaks, she rallied well from off the pace to be second then. So she's versatile enough to sit close if the pace is moderate. She'll be more mid-pack if they've got a solid early tempo. But I think Lush Lips enters this race in really good condition for Brendan Walsh, and I'll look for her to prove best with Tyler Gaffleone.
Darren, we can see your pick already that you have pretty picture, but I wanted to ask you because before we recorded, you had mentioned that Lush Lips would be your fade of the week.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I just don't think the price is going to reflect her actual chances to win. I know she got the job done in the QE2, but she got a dream set up that day. A couple of the major players in there got what I thought were questionable rides pretty far back through some rather soft fractions early on. So I thought she got a great ride that day by Tyler Gaffleone and was able to take advantage of it. And she did. She's a good filly, and she did what a good filly does. When you get the best trip in racing, you win. But you go through her races. I mean, the Tepin Stakes, she beat Princess Attitude, who's in this field. Princess Attitude out of the Tepin Stakes was well beaten in the Grade 3 Pucker Up. She was beaten in the Dueling Ground Oaks. She hasn't been able to break through an entry-level allowance company as of yet. So I think Lush Lips is going to be propped up by that last victory more than she should be when she was 8.5 to 1. And I just think at a price close to even money, she's a play against.
So tell us why you like Pretty Picture.
Yeah, I always like whether it's fillies, colts, late developing horses this time of year that seem to be getting better with upside. And I think Pretty Picture fits that mold. She was a 2-time winner. She showed versatility over the surfaces at Monmouth, winning at both over the turf course and over a sloppy sealed track. And then I thought she ran really well to be a solid third behind a horse that I think is extremely talented and ready for candy in the Grade 2 Sands Point. Now, Fast Market, who was going to be in this race, actually just ran and won the Pebble Stakes last weekend at Aqueduct. So Fast Market's not going to be in this field. And you are getting a look here at my top selection coming from far, far back. Pretty Picture. That's her kind of slicing her way through to get up for third. She's finishing with a flourish here. And I thought this was a really solid effort for her first move up into Stakes Company, where she kind of had to navigate some traffic, split horses, do it professionally. And I thought was running after what 2 really nice fillies and Ready for Candy and next out stakes winner, Fast Market, who will likely, I'm sure, was scratched from this field. So at 10 to 1, I'll take a flyer on a Chad Brown, lightly raced horse, Flavian Pratt, that I think has a world of upside here at a good number.
I almost went with this horse myself, looking at that last out against Graded Stakes Company, a 106 late pace rating, and was closing well, going a little bit longer, but she did win on debut at the distance of a mile and a 16th and looked really sharp that day. I ultimately went with another price here at 15 to 1, the 3 Table Flirt. This is a horse for Bill Mott, who started her career, tried dirt first out, then went to the turf, and ended up finishing. Well, it took her 4 tries to break her maiden, but she broke her maiden at a mile and an eighth on the turf at Gulfstream, and then went to the Grade 2 Appalachian, was far back and racing at a mile that day, then went to the dirt for a little bit, for a couple of starts, 4 starts to be exact. But then last out went back to the turf, racing at Churchill Downs a mile and a 16th, and won by a neck that day with an 89 Brisnet speed figure, had a 117 class rating. Seems like maybe going back to the turf could be the right formula here, and we'll be coming off the pace. I think the 4 probably is going to set the early pace here in this race, and I almost debated with Classic Q. I don't know how much of a challenge Classic Q is going to get for the early lead, and if maybe that horse will have their own way on the front end. But Table Flirt, I think with Junior Alvarado aboard, maybe sits a little bit closer to the early speed, and I thought with the way that she showed a late closing kick in the last race at Churchill, I thought was in play at 15 to 1. I thought I want to take a shot. I think Lush Lips deserves respect, and I can see why James picked Lush Lips, but I wanted to take a shot with a 15 to 1 price here in this race.
I think there's several progressive types. You guys touched on 2 of them. Bracelet. I mean,
Yeah.
watch out for this filly on turf. She ran in a pair of synthetic stakes at Turfway, came back from a long layoff and looked good at Keeneland in her comebacker for Cox. And then the other one as well, to me, you got In the Stars, who's coming off back-to-back allowance wins. All 3 of those types are really trying or making their either first or second start in a turf stakes. Bracelet, In the Stars, Pretty Picture, and Table Flirt, and all of them have potential upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Classic Q is fascinating here off of those last 2 races where she didn't, get off to the good starts that we were accustomed to. And I mean, you want to talk about just the complete opposite running style for what she had been doing previously. I'll be curious to see what she does here, but I have to give her a tip of the hat. I mean, she was a closing 4th, going shorter than she wanted to, behind the eventual Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner. And then she came from another Galaxy to finish 2nd in the Grade 2 Valley View to kind of show her versatility, where she's a stakes winner on the lead, and she stakes placed in a Grade 2 coming from far, far back. So obviously that's a highly talented filly that logically poses probably the biggest threat to the favorite.
Now, my concern, I don't know about you, Darren, but I see a filly, that was like in 3 consecutive starts, like breaking on top and having a clear early lead. And, she's like 10th. She's not getting out of the starting gate in those last 2 starts. And at the first call, she's 10th in both races.
Yep.
Got a little bit of concern about that sometimes, that there's something going on mentally.
Yeah, it looked like they maybe coming out of that race at Kentucky Downs, they were trying to they got a 46-4 work into her, and maybe they were trying to get things rolling along a little bit. But then subsequently, the next couple of works, especially the one on November 20th coming into this, they've taken a different approach. So maybe they're trying to figure it out. She's run well regardless, but you never like to see a filly lose her biggest advantage when she has speed as a weapon.
Well, I think we've covered plenty of this race. I think it could be a little wide open, and we could see some upside come through, or maybe Lush Lips just runs away with it. But let's move on to race 11. It's going to be on Friday, the Grade 2 Clark at a mile and an eighth, 3-year-olds and up. Let's see, Darren, how did you see this playing out?
Yeah, a little jaded in this race because the Grade 3 Fayette really did me in that day. I had rattle and roll for a lot of different combinations and a lot of winning tickets, and got a really good run from him at 13-1. You're not going to get anything close to that price here. I went to Magnitude, a horse that I kind of, just threw out into the trash when the Travers we were talking about it. So it's a little funny that I'm picking him in here, but it's a much different situation. I actually really respected his effort in the Pennsylvania Derby, where I thought he showed a newfound dimension coming from off the pace on a racetrack that doesn't often kindly to the type of trip that he had. And I thought running second that day to Baeza was a real feather in his cap. That's him down on the rail, and he's stuck in and behind a wall of horses here. He's actually being asked to go a little bit here. And I was under the impression at this point that they just were not going to get much out of him. And now he's kind of got to move out in between horses and find another lane. He's never going to beat Baeza, but I thought the fact that he was able to get up for second here and run past goal oriented spoke a lot to the fact that this is a horse that still does have ability and probably still figuring things out at the top level. And he's finishing very nicely here. And I thought this was a real testament to his development at this time of the season. And again, a developing 3-year-old finding his best stride this time of the year against older horses that are likely to come from off the pace when we know what they are. I thought that's an advantage to Magnitude. I look for him to get back to more, doesn't necessarily have to be his front running tactics, but a little bit closer to the pace. If I can get 9-2 on him, I think that's a fair price.
Speaking of front running tactics, I thought you were going to go for Chunk of Gold for sure.
Well, Chunk of Gold, I went back and forth on him a little bit in my thoughts here. I thought Jose Ortiz getting off of him to ride Magnitude probably said something. You don't see too many riders jump off a horse who win by 8 1/4 in a second level allowance like that, especially a 3-year-old like this. So I thought that was a little bit of a slight against him, and it is the first time in stakes company that he's going to be facing older horses, which is always difficult. And Magnitude, I know, is the same thing, but I've always thought Chunk of Gold was in that next kind of level below the best 3-year-olds. I still feel that way. So I put him below Gosger and Magnitude in this spot.
Well, maybe a little bit of a surprise as well. James, our Bengals fan, not going with Houday. That's actually not much of a surprise. You've got a good horse in here.
I do. Well, I do, but I do need to say that we need to get DZ to Central Kentucky. We'll take him to Versailles and Paris. And now he'll be the only one saying those names because it's Fayette, Versailles, and Paris here at Central Kentucky. But
Paris, I'll give you, but I'm sorry, it's not Versailles, it's Versailles. I'm sorry, Kentucky.
I struggle with that one too.
There's a horse. Her name was Versailles Treaty, not Versailles Treaty.
I'll tell you, to me, the Breeders' Cup Classic was going to be a little bit of a referendum on the 3-year-olds versus the older horses. And that all changed when Sovereignty came out of the race, in the grand scheme of things. But the fact that journalism and Baeza couldn't hit the board in that race just sort of, I thought, confirmed what a little bit of my suspicion was by the late summer, that 3-year-old division that I thought was pretty good early in the year just didn't shake up. And as a result, I mean, I'm taking on Gosger, Chunk of Gold, and Magnitude in this race. I think there's plenty of pace. I don't think Magnitude's going to be setting it because there's all this inside speed. Cook Creek, even Willie D's are both drawn to his inside. They're going to guarantee a good setup. That Fayette had a ton of speed in it too. And I thought that race really set up well for Hit Show and Rock and Roll. And I bet Rock and Roll that day, so I was on the wrong closer. But I'll say this. Hit Show, I mean, we've seen it this year from him. He's not stringing together these performances. He came off of a victory in the Fayette last year and got beat in the Clark. And I think this is Rattle and Roll's turn on Friday. In this race here, just a tough trip too. You could see him like closing on the outside there, but he just left himself. Not only did he leave himself too much to do, but he got in tight on that turn and had to go so far wide, lost a ton of ground. He ran twice overseas earlier this year in Saudi Arabia, and then he had a huge layoff going into Lucas Classic. That race had no pace whatsoever, hardly in it, and he sort of needed the race in a sense. But he ran a good race in that Fayette, and I think he's building towards another win in the Clark. He won last year's Clark, and I look for Rattle and Roll to get it done from off the pace.
So, Ashley, I'll take a little bit of the other side. I understand what James is saying about the 3-year-olds not hitting the board in the Breeders' Cup Classic. First of all, the 3-year-old who's head and shoulders above all the others wasn't in the race. Second of all, Forever Young Sierra Leone and Fierceness are different horses than Hit Show and Rattle and Roll. I think that there is a massive gap between the Breeders' Cup Classic older horses and the older horses that you're going to see in this race. And I think that there's an argument to be made that Gosger actually ran the best race of anybody in the Fayette lane, close to a very fast pace, making the lead in mid-stretch and only getting beat by a length and a quarter. So, yes, I agree. The best older horses, the Forever Youngs of the world and the Sierra Leones, if they were in a race like this in a million years, I would never take a horse like Magnitude. I just think that I can't put Hit Show and Rattle and Roll in the same conversation, making a point as the top three finishes of the Breeders' Cup Classic.
No, I can make that same point, though, with the Gosger and Magnitude compared to Journalism and Baeza. I mean, they're clearly inferior. If Journalism and Baeza are the B level of the sophomore class, then these 3-year-olds in the Clark are the C level. So, I mean, to me, there's still going to be levels with the older horses and 3-year-olds that we're coming down to.
That's a fair. I don't think Magnitude's that far behind Baeza, but I guess we'll find out on Friday.
I think it's a fair point from both of you that we're not getting the best of the 3-year-olds or the older horses. I do think you're on a good angle here, Darren, going with Magnitude, switching up the tactics in the Pennsylvania Derby. But I was looking at the older horses more in this field as well. And you did have to knock the consistency. If you look at Hit Show, especially at Churchill, I feel like if you look at his last couple times showing up at Churchill, just hasn't run good races. So I kind of wanted to shy away from him as the favorite. First Mission, I don't know. Like Brad has 2 in the field here, and Flavian's aboard First Mission. I feel like that horse is a little bit more dangerous than Hit Show, but I went with Rattle and Roll, kind of similar reasons with James. If you look at his appearance at Churchill in the Lucas Classic, that was coming off a lengthy layoff. I wasn't expecting him to win that day. Then coming back at Keeneland in the Fayette, he closed well, and he had a 102 late pace rating, could improve third off the layoff. And the other thing is he didn't have his regular rider, Brian Hernandez, at Keeneland or at Churchill. But actually, I think Brian aboard Mystic Dan that day, or was that after his injury?
He was hurt.
Either way.
He was hurt.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't out. He was out.
Either way, yeah, regular rider that has been on Rattle and Roll in the past, including in last year's Clark, now is going to be back aboard. So the fact that Brian, who knows this horse very well, is going to be on Rattle and Roll, late closing kick, I think that third start off the layoff, I had to go with him. He also has 4 wins from 10 starts at Churchill Downs and has finished in the money, 7 of 13 times at 1 1/8 miles. So looking at older horses and where I see some consistency and at least some good marks on their resume, that's why I went Rattle and Roll as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. One of the things that you guys are talking about with consistency and the form being in and out. The one thing with the older horses, I guess it goes for every horse, but older horses in particular, when they win a grade 3 or a lower end grade 2 and they do it well, they get moved up. And then they go in another race and they face, maybe some of the better older horses or the best older horses. They don't run as well. Then they drop back down and they face a little bit inferior competition. They run well. And then they move back up to try it again, and they don't run as well, and they drop back down. So that's kind of the trend you see, why a lot of these second and third tier older horses that are just below the best are inconsistent, because off of a good win, they often take a shot. And then when they don't do well, they drop back down to the level that that they're competitive as. So it's kind of hard unless they're going to have a stretch where they get really good and can be consistent at the top level. Because when a horse wins a grade 3, they go to a grade 2. They win a grade 2, they go to a grade 1. There's not a lot of horses out there that once they start winning grade 3 races, they just stay a grade 3 horse. They try to move them up. So when they're not grade 1 caliber, for the most part, you get that inconsistency. And I think that's what you see in horses like Hit Show and Rattle and Roll. That's a product of them being a cut below.
And I wouldn't worry about those jockeys, because Hit Show had sort of turned in a bad race, or, since coming back. His first race was sort of dull, and Irad picked up that mount, and he really gutted out that Fayette. So I think he's going to stay with the hot jockey at Churchill. Flavien Prat, listen, he came in and rode some weekends in September at Churchill, didn't do well. Didn't do well at Keeneland, but ever since Keeneland ended, he's been on an absolute tear in New York. But I'm still a little leery of betting him outside of New York there. And I know he did okay in the Breeders' Cup, but And you're a New York guy. You're probably all into Flavian right now. But I'm like, that could be a little byproduct of the competition.
For me, the jockey part of the conversation at the top level, I'm not going to say I don't really pay attention to it, but when you're looking at grade 1, grade 2 races, these guys could all ride. I really don't move horses up that much or drop horses down that much based on rider switches in grade 1, grade 2 type races. Cause there are certain instances. I'll be honest. I don't like Julian Leparoux on closers. I think he gets horses in trouble. I like Julian Leparoux on horses that are speed. I have a similar view of Florent Giroux. So there are certain instances that I do that. But if a horse going from Jose Ortiz to Flavian Pratt or something like that, I'm not gonna downgrade the horse.
Yeah, that's fair. And Brad and Irad Ortiz, they have just been red hot at Churchill. So honestly, that pairing would be the one that I would keep an eye on. And the fact that I think Flavian's in town, I think Florent was normally kind of that regular rider for First Mission. But yeah, I mean, Flavian Pratt, one of the top riders. So I think
First
you're right.
Mission,
So
if the race was a mile and a 16th, I would give First Mission a more serious look. I know he's won at a mile and an eighth, but those races weren't like this one. So I think the distance is the big question mark with him.
Before we move over to our Stars of Tomorrow 2 card, we've got some promos and tournaments going on for Thanksgiving week. So Darren, tell us about that.
Yeah, a couple of really cool promos on Thursday. We have a Turkey Day double. It's a hit it and split it daily doubles at Churchill Downs and the fairgrounds. So what you need to do in order to cash, you have to hit 2 daily doubles at Churchill Downs, at least 2. You could, if you want to hit more, God bless, by all means, hit them all. But if you have to hit at least 2 at Churchill and 2 at the fairgrounds, 4 daily doubles in total. And if you hit 4 daily doubles, 2 on each card at least, you're going to share in an additional $4,000 prize pool to give you a little bit more excitement in the betting action on Thursday for Thanksgiving between 2 of our premier signals. And then on top of that, Clark Day, I admit this has become my favorite promotion. I love the win ladder. I think it is a great offer. It focuses on the simplest of wagers in horse racing, the win bet. Something I've always felt that we need to do more of is getting back to basics and really pushing those simple wagers that put money in our players' pockets and are easier to hit. It's a 4-tier win ladder, up to $10,000. If you win 3 races, and there's 12 races on the card, so you got plenty of opportunities here. If you win 3 races on the Clark card, you're going to share in $1,000. If you win 4, you're going to share in another $1,500. If you win 5, you're going to share in another $2,500. And if you go 6 for 12 in your win bets, and your win bet has to be at least a $10 wager, you're going to share an additional $5,000. So if you do have 6 winners on the card on Clark Day, you are going to share in $10,000 worth of prizes just for $10 win bets. I love the offer. I love to be able to give it to players. They've responded in kind and certainly seem to be very engaged with the promotion. So very excited to offer a $10,000 win ladder on the Clark card on Friday at Churchill Downs. And of course, what would Clark Day be without a massive tournament? Clark Betting Challenge, the inaugural edition, $2,000 buy-in, $1,500 to your bankroll. It's got guaranteed cash of $10,000. It's got Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge seats, and it's got NHC seats. All of that included. There's a qualifier coming up on Thanksgiving Thursday for it. We've got a feeder for it tomorrow on Wednesday as well. So a lot of great things to get into the Clark Betting Challenge on Friday. But happy to roll that out for the first time for the tournament players, Ashley.
I like it. I like that graphic too. Nice little rose silhouette.
They do a good job. They do a good job with the graphics. They're a lot more creative than anything I can come up with. I can tell you that.
Well, now that we've covered all of that for Clark Day for the tournaments, let's go over to Saturday Stars of Tomorrow 2 card, where we have the grade 2 goldenrod, and this will award points on a sliding scale to the top 5 finishers on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. It's race 11, amount is 16th for 2-year-old fillies, 5:54 p.m. Eastern time. And I think, James, we're back to you. Who is your top pick in this race?
Well, I'm going to go with number 11, Bella Ballerina. And listen, I almost went with your horse, Ashley, Atropa. I'm really excited.
That's mine.
Oh, with Darren's. I almost went with
Darren's horse too. So
Yeah,
Maybe we should just change our picks.
because I'm really excited about both of these last out maiden winners. Um, I think there's a potential that this race could set up well with for the expected favorite Explora, who won the Grade Two Oak Leaf, and next it's a second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I mean, she's a grinder with underwhelming speed numbers, but I do think she has the potential to keep improving for Bob Baffert and be like a serious type next year. But I'm going to go with Bella Ballerina. I love this filly's debut at Keeneland. I thought that was a pretty salty maiden special 8 race, and the runner-up came right back and won her next start over a decent maiden field. And Bella Ballerina, I thought, didn't show a lot from the starting that gate that day, but we'll see her just basically go widest of all, well, 4 wide, widest of the runners there. And she strikes the front. And what I really liked was just how she finished up. I mean, she's bred to really prefer longer distances and keep improving as she continues to stretch out. And she's bred, obviously, to be a real good one. And I think she has a lot going for her off this maiden win. So I'm going to take a shot with Bella Ballerina in the Goldenrod.
All right, Darren, tell us why you like Atropa. Like it turns out, James and I like this horse too, but you're the one that went with the pick.
Yeah, and we kind of did this before the morning line comes out. I have to imagine Explorer is going to be a pretty heavily back favorite in here. Atropa, her debut up at Saratoga in a 6 furlong sprint, didn't break the best that day. She was chasing from a wide spot over a sloppy sealed track that she didn't seem to really get over well. And I just love what Sherry DeVoe did. She said, you know what, this is a filly. She's buying into mischief. She's out of a Bernardini mare. There's plenty of stamina on the bottom side of this pedigree. She wants 2 turns. Put her away, waited till the races got a little bit longer. They freshened her up. They circled the race at Keeneland, and she ran an absolute hole in the wind that day, destroying a field. Extremely impressive, prompting the early pace, making a move in hand around the far turn to seize the lead. And from this point to the finish line, the margin between her and the rest of the field does nothing but extend. And she wins this like a good thing. Now, if you watch her through the stretch here, she's getting a little bit lazy. You see the riders kind of getting into her because I think she's like playing around there. She's looking. She kind of shifted out ground a little bit there. And right there, you can see she shifted in. Look, the rider had to kind of grab a hold of her because she was kind of like, where'd everybody go? She was so far in front, she didn't even hear anything and started to play around. The horse that she beat, who ran second that day, Measure, came back to win a maiden special weight a couple of weeks ago at Churchill Downs. So she was flattered by that, resulted well. I think this is a highly talented filly with a world of upside. I think she's going to get a good setup. There's a lot of early speed in the race. I think the tactics of the race are going to be fascinating with a lot of the horses that are stretching out. She's going to sit a mid-pack trip here, and I expect her to be extremely tough. I look for her to run huge again.
Every time I see that pedigree cross, I got to mention it. I mean, we got a lot of it this year with the Derby winner, Sovereignties by Into Mischief out of a Bernardini mare.
That'll play into our sire future wager talk in a second.
And that's a trophy. That's a trophy, like you referenced, Darren's bloodlines. Yep.
I almost went with Atropa as well, trying to not back the almost, in some ways, it seemed like kind of an obvious choice to want to go with Explorer, who was a good second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, had a 95% speed figure, a 97 2 back in the Oak Leaf. But I think this is a good chance to try to get creative and not back what I think will be heavily favored at post time, this Bob Baffert runner. I ended up going with Life of Joy for Brad Cox. This horse is unbeaten from 2 starts, had a huge 14-length win on debut at Horseshoe Indy, and then came back and won the Rags to Riches by 2 1/4 lengths. This is a horse that's going to come from off the pace and kind of reminds me, sort of, not a lot, but a little bit like Good Cheer in run style, and also just coming into this race. For one, actually, Good Cheer won the Rags to Riches on the way to winning the Goldenrod. And we've seen Brad Cox do that with a couple of runners. And the Rags to Riches has been a key prep for the Goldenrod in the last 10 years. There's been Good Cheer, Hoosier Philly, Finite, won the Rags to Riches before winning this race. But Life of Joy, being an off the pace runner, I think there's going to be a pretty solid pace. I do think Explora is going to be a tough filly in this field, but I think Life of Joy should bring some value. Irad Ortiz Jr. is aboard. We've already talked about that pairing with Brad Cox, and the fact that this horse has a win at a mile and a 16th at Churchill already and has looked very solid. So I'll go with Life of Joy coming from off the pace.
She scares me more than anybody else in the race. Not only did she follow Good Cheer's footsteps with the Rags to Riches win, but Good Cheer also broke her maiden at Horseshoe Indianapolis by a pole as well. And I also found it fascinating when you go back and watch that replay. She was playing around the stretch too. She was kind of laying all over the horse that was to her outside, the Grumpy Rabbit, and even playing around the way she was. She effectively put that horse away and pulled away impressively. And the Grumpy Rabbit is no slouch. She was third in the Grade 1 Alcibiades, and Percy's Bar, who won that race, came back to run a decent third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I don't think it was the strongest edition we've ever seen of the Juvenile Fillies, so I do call that form into a little bit of question. But I think Life of Joy has a world of talent as well and scares me. I'll be honest with you, I'm more afraid of Life of Joy than I am of Explorer.
And her off-the-pace run style, she's going to get a more realistic play. They almost went 50 for the half in that Rags to Riches. She'll get a better setup on Saturday.
I did think it was interesting. Bob Baffert's putting blinkers back on Explora, which started her career. Both first two starts had blinkers, came off, won by more than 4 lengths in the Grade 2 Oakleaf. But last out, I mean, Super Corridora was able to just wire the field. So what do you think the blinkers, like what's the ultimate goal here, do you think, by adding blinkers back on?
I don't see him helping her that much. She's still like a little bit off the pace. And I think that run line, you look at that Explorer run line, it doesn't tell the story. She made a run at her like nearing the end of the far turn. And yeah, I mean, she's down a length at the 8th pole where that the next to last point of call is, but she floated her out a little bit in between calls. And then Explorer was just grinding late to make it look closer on paper than it actually was.
Yeah, look, I'm certainly not going to pretend like I know more about equipment changes on horses than Bob Baffert. I'm surprised that they're putting the blinkers back on because she was certainly much more keen in her first couple of races to go to the front, which is fine. I mean, when you're sprinting your first couple of races as a 2-year-old, you obviously want to have speed if you can. I thought when they took the blinkers off, she ran the best race of her career by far in the Oakleaf, where she showed an ability to rate, stalk, pounce, and pull away. But the only thing I can make of it, Ashley, the horse had a workout 4 days ago at Santa Anita in 111.4, a bullet. I'm guessing he put the blinkers on for that work and was completely enamored by the workout and decided that he's going to put him back on in the race because of it. I imagine that there's a connection between those two things.
Well, we'll find out if they do anything for Explora in the Goldenrod on Saturday. But to close out, we're going to talk about on Thanksgiving Day, we have Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager. We also have the Lone Sire Future Wager available. It'll be on TwinSpires website and on the app. It opens at noon on Thursday, closes on closing day, November 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're going to talk about which horses we think have some value in Pool 2. And I'll start with James. Who do you like?
My first one is Commandment. I'll bet a little bit more on him than my other pick. I really think that, he improved off of his debut effort at Keeneland, and longer distances are going to be within his wheelhouse. So looking at this win at 7 furlongs where he draws off to win by 5+ lengths, I thought it was there was a buzz about him and his stablemate Confessional when they were training up to their career debuts. And, Commandment got bet down, but he just ran into a really sharp winner that day at Keeneland. This race here, much more impressive, something to build upon. The other one I'll use is Mob. You'll touch upon him, but Brian Lynch. Brian Lynch made a run at the leading trainer despite starting 20 horses in the fall meet. I think he won 9 races. This Mob won last. Well, it's not over yet. He's won 9 races so far. But that Mob, I thought last weekend looked really good breaking his maiden. So those are my 2 future wager plays.
Darren, tell us about who you're going to be betting on in Pool 2.
Yeah, Rancho Santa Fe fascinates me. Son of Tappet. out of a Smart Strike mare that was a stakes winner on the racetrack. She's produced 3 winners from 3 starters, including a stakes winner. You can't have much better 1.25 mile pedigree than what this horse sports. Might even be the Belmont winner, to be honest with you. I might be a little bit early on him, but the debut I thought was fantastic, and then went around 2 turns at Keeneland. And I mean, when you take a look at this horse is just leveling out nicely here, and just looks like a big lumbering sort that as the races get longer, it's just going to benefit him. He's still figuring things out. He's going to get better. He beat Infiltrate there in that replay, and Infiltrate, who's also in this future wager pool, came out of that race to win an allowance event, albeit an off-the-turf one at Churchill Downs just a couple of days ago for Brendan Walsh. So I do think that Rancho Santa Fe is really, really interesting at that 80-1 number. And look, Incredibolt, I think, is a horse that's got a world of upside as well. He's following the path of sovereignty from last year with the big win in the Street Sense. I mean, how can you not watch this turn of foot in the stretch? Talk about a horse that looks like he's just going to get better as the races get longer, and should be no surprise based on the pedigree. But this horse just levels off incredibly well. And this is just put your head down and a professional win where he's just going to reel in the leaders, run by them all, and go away easily. Looks like a horse that's just going to get better and better as these races go forward as well. Plenty to like about him. I like the fact that coming out of this race, they said, okay, we got a couple of wins. They're both at Churchill Downs. We're going to give him a little time to freshen up, bring him back in the early part of the winter and get him ready for the Triple Crown Trail. I think that's certainly the right approach with him. And he's down at Palm Beach Downs, I believe now, is in Florida with Riley Mott's crew. So we'll see what the winter looks like for him. But I think he's very interesting as well.
And I have part of my pick is related to James with Mob, who is a recent maiden winner on debut at Churchill Downs. And as you mentioned, trained by Brian Lynch, Louis Saez aboard. Actually, that pairing has been doing really well at Churchill. But Mob on debut had one of the top speed figures last weekend of any 2-year-old. And also in his bloodlines, I believe it was his 3rd dam, produced Super Saver. I'm trying to remember exactly the bloodlines. I think that was what it was.
Yeah, that's right. 3rd dam produced Super Saver. His 4th dam is Get Lucky by Mr. Prospector. That's a pretty classy, regal female family.
So it is just, we've only got one start to go off of, but I thought it was an impressive debut. And this is a horse owned by Flying Dutchman, and you're seeing Brian Lynch get a lot of these horses owned by Flying Dutchman. They're coming out, winning big races. He's got a solid barn that I think maybe we're going to see a horse that can show up on the first Saturday in May. But I also went with a Bob Baffert horse. He's obviously no stranger to the first Saturday in May. Cherokee Nation, I thought, had some value. And this is a horse that's still a maiden. Was beaten a nose last out racing a mile at Santa Anita on debut. Was a 4th by 11 lengths behind Boyd, who is also in this future wager. But I went with what I thought could be some value, and this is a horse by Not This Time out of an Indian Charlie mare, also owned by SF Racing, Starlight, Madicket Stables, the whole group of owners, and a lot of those owners have had a hand in Kentucky Derby runners in the past. So I kind of went with that angle too of, okay, could this horse be one that they had eyes on the Derby from the start, and will the horse break its maiden suit and start coming together and putting it all together in time to really earn some points on the trail? So if I'm just going to pick a Baffert runner, I thought the price, I was intrigued. Also a 99 breast nut speed figure, even though that horse finished 2nd by a nose last out.
Dave, well, you took runners by Gun Runner and Not This Time, who are the hottest young sires out there. And Indian Charlie's a broodmare sire, Flightline, and some other good 2-turn runners. So his female family, I thought, was solid for the distance, and he cost $1.1 million. Cherokee Nation did.
And he's racing as a maiden in the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes on Saturday. So he's facing
right. So I might not put a wager down at all, depending on what happens Saturday.
Well, if he runs 3rd or 4th, you might get the price you want.
That's
so
true.
to build upon it.
We'll see how he does there, but it certainly is. I mean, if Bob Baffert is shipping a maiden over to Churchill Downs to run in this race, I think it certainly probably speaks pretty well of what he thinks of the horse. But but yeah, I mean, look, he's bred to be good around 2 turns, and we've seen in a lot of the years that Baffert has won the Derby. It's not the horse that's been flashy, winning sprints in August and September that ends up being his big Derby horse. So you could do a lot worse than a type like this.
Yeah, I almost wonder if maybe Brant is.
No
I'm gonna give
chance
it.
he's getting a mile and a quarter. He's got some. He's got some
He reminds
suspect.
me of Barnes a little bit.
Brandt and Desert Gate, who are both Grade 1 winners, are both real suspect, I think, for longer distances and classic distances next spring.
Yep.
Before we go over sires, I do want to note I had some stats on pool 2 in the past going back to 2014. Now, if you wagered a $2 win bet on Mystic Dan in pool 2 of 2024, you would have gotten $212. If you had wagered on Authentic in 2020 in pool 2, you would have gotten 103 on that return. And then we've had, it looks like the Derby winner we've had in pool 2 every year dating back to 2014. Now, you didn't make any money on California Chrome. That was $3.60. And then Justify was $4.40. But
no, they were part of all others. They were part of all others.
Oh, that's what that, okay.
Yeah, they were all others. Justify was unraced till late February.
Okay, I saw that note in the email and was kind of wondering, it wasn't clear. Okay, so that makes sense. But yeah, Mystic Dan was clearly an individual choice, and you could have made a lot of. Sovereignty was 41.42 was the return on $2.
There was a good one, yeah.
Sorry, all right. Well, no, I'm glad you clarified that because I was kind of surprised that the price would have been that low already on any of those horses.
California Chrome ran in a Calbred stake in December, and Justify was unraced, so they weren't on anybody's radar.
Yeah, I was like, how did people already know about Justify in pool 2? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, sire wager. We're going to talk about that real quick too, and who we plan to put our money on in the lone sire future wager, which will be part of pool 2 this weekend. So Darren, who do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Tappet. Tappet is the sire of one of the horses that I gave out when talking about the Kentucky Derby future wager itself. But I mean, every year he's got a nice 3-year-old. I've lost track of how many Belmont Stakes he's been the winning sire of. I don't know if it's 4 or 5.
I think it's 4.
Yeah. So you certainly know that he's going to throw runners that want added ground. He's getting a little bit long in the tooth now. He was from the Smarty Jones crop of 3-year-olds. So that would make him 24 going on 25 years old, I believe. So there's not going to be a lot of chances left for him to get a Derby winner. In all likelihood, but I certainly respect the horses that he's thrown in terms of Belmont winners and other areas. He's been a sire of sires for a couple of decades now, and he's got a couple of interesting 2-year-olds that I like. So at a big number at 80, 80-1 for him versus 6-1 for Not This Time. I mean, you have to look for some value in a spot like this. So I'll take the ageless warrior Tappet at 80-1.
I think it'd be a great story if Tappet got a Derby winner like Darren referenced. Even a horse like Curlin, I look at him. He's like overdue seemingly. How many more years do you have left? But for my sire, I'm going to go with Constitution. He's got one runner in this pool and White Tiger, who just recently won a 2 turns, a maiden race for Brad Cox. But I just think Constitution is really hitting his peak right now. Over the last 4 years, 5 years, he's had Tizzle finish second as the Kentucky Derby favorite and win the Belmont and Travers. Mindframe came along too late for the Derby, wound up second in the Belmont, and Catching Freedom was 4th in the Derby and 3rd in the Preakness. And one thing I just see is all these big barns, Brad Cox, Baffert, Asmussen, Pletcher, Brown, they all have constitutions. And so I think it's potential for him to have a 3-year-old come along as well that isn't in pool 2.
And I ultimately went with Gunrunner. I'm not getting as good of a price as you all, 8-1. There are several individual choices in our future wager this weekend that are by Gunrunner. You have Spice Runner, who already won one of our Kentucky Derby preps. That was the Grade 3 Iroquois. Obviously, I talked about Mob is a horse that I like. And then you have Further Ado, who was a 20-length winner for Brad Cox, who is going to be running this weekend in that Stars of Tomorrow 2 card for the Grade 2 Jockey Club. Wait, that's the name of the race, right?
Kentucky Jockey Club.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jockey Club races, stakes races, so it confused me for a second. But further ado, looks like that could be a really good horse for Brad Cox. And Gunrunner has produced a lot of successful progeny recently. Sierra Leone was just barely beaten in the Kentucky Derby in 2021 and then went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Actually, Super Corridora is by Gunrunner as well and won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. You've got horses that appeared in the Derby like Cyberknife and then Taba. Didn't necessarily do well in the Derby, but they were Derby horses. And then you have a Preakness winner early voting by Gunrunner. So considering he's had some very successful progeny recently, and we have a lot of horses that are by Gunrunner who are 2-year-olds who look like they could show up in the Derby, I thought 8-1, I'll take it because I'll probably get multiple chances here to maybe have a couple in the field for Derby.
If pool 2 closed before the Kentucky Jockey Club Saturday evening, I do think Breeders' Cup juvenile winner and undefeated Ted Nafi would be the individual favorite. But off of a 20-length maiden win, if this further ado just crushes them in this Kentucky Jockey Club, he's going to take a ton of cash and challenge for favoritism. He's going to get bet down if he runs big again on Saturday.
I know we've taken up a lot of time, but our producer did want me to ask you something Thanksgiving related. He wanted to know what your favorite Thanksgiving side is, if anyone has any hot takes on this.
I have a hot take. Everybody laughs at me.
What is it? Cranberry sauce?
I love cranberry sauce. I do.
Okay.
I love cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
So we, unfortunately, we go to a friend's house every Thanksgiving because my parents are both gone and my in-laws are both gone. I don't have any brothers and sisters, so we don't have a lot of family. So we go to a friend's house, and she lost her dad during COVID, so I go to carve the turkey. And in return for carving the turkey, she makes me homemade cranberry sauce, which is like phenomenal. So and nobody else touches it. So I'm like Kevin McAllister when everyone leaves and he gets like the cheese pizza just for him. And it's just a giant. I gotta get a whole plate of cranberry sauce just for me. So yeah, there's your hot take. I mean, look, it's all good, I mean, but yes, I will be the cranberry sauce guy on the panel.
James, who are you on this panel?
Well, am I gonna pick sweet potatoes or something? No, nothing like that. I do love the stuffing. I love the stuffing. I do. So I'm going to go with that as, the mashed potatoes and gravy. Some years are better than others. It depends on who's making them, etc. But the stuffing, dressing is you fix it by itself. Stuffing is the dressing. You cook it inside the turkey. And I like the stuffing.
I'm with you on that. Homemade stuffing, that would be number one for me. Stovetop,
that's an easy.
Not
that's
so
like
much.
A low-hanging fruit.
I like mashed potatoes too, but I personally, I'm more of my favorite thing is the pumpkin pie, the dessert, and then my family tradition for most holidays is a good whiskey sour. We have our own family recipe, so does that count as a side dish? I think it does.
Hey, that's a Thanksgiving holiday tradition. Yes.
My wife makes a broccoli and cheese casserole with crunched up Ritz crackers in it.
Oh, I think I've had
sounds good. I like broccoli casserole.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So if I don't go to the cranberry sauce, that's another side that I get to partake in.
All right. Well, I hope you get to enjoy your cranberry sauce, Darren, and all the best stuffing that you can find, James. And we wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, happy betting, and we'll see you next week.